Once again, Catherine Brooks, and hopefully today you're going to learn a few new things. It might be a little bit of a review for some items, but I wanted to give a nice smattering of some of our simpler tips and some of our more complex tips. So let's go ahead and get started with tip number one. So tip number one, as an administrator with Enterprise PDM, you might be doing some testing, you might be changing some permissions for different groups and users, and if you ever come across some odd occurrences where the permissions that you've changed or items that you have changed aren't quite taking effect as you would expect them to, this could be because you might want to exit out of the client interface completely before going through and performing your testing. So let me go ahead and show you where you would find this exit. It's underneath the system tray icon for SolidWorks Enterprise PDM, and you simply click exit here. So click on your system tray icon for Enterprise PDM and click exit, and it exits out of the system. So fairly easy, just a good rule of thumb that if you're doing some testing, you might want to exit out to clear everything out as an administrator. Tip number two, creating a desktop shortcut for a local vault view. So even though you might have the Enterprise PDM shortcut in your favorites inside of the local vault view inside of the Windows Explorer, you might also want to put a shortcut on the desktop as well. That's not quite as simple as right-clicking on Quick Start or the vault name inside of the C drive and trying to add it as a shortcut. So you do have to go about roundabout different type of way of adding that shortcut by right-clicking on your desktop, hovering over New, choosing Shortcut, and then browsing to the location of your vault. And for this example, it's going to be Quick Start. So if I jump over to my desktop here, if I right-click anywhere on the desktop, I can hover over New and choose Shortcut. Here it asks what item would you like to create a shortcut for. Click on the Browse and very simply drill down to where you have your local vault view. Click OK, next, and then if you wanted to change the name for the shortcut you could, and then simply finish. So let's go ahead and go back to our desktop here, and now we have a shortcut that goes directly into the local vault view. Let's see, where's my PowerPoint? There it is. So adding a shortcut for the local vault view onto the desktop. Tip number three, setting the detail view for the entire local vault view. When you access Enterprise PDM through the local vault view, you might see large icons, medium icons, you might see the folders using icons, you might have a list, but more often than not you're going to want to utilize the details view more often than not so that you can see the different columns that are set up to give you additional information about the files in the vault, who has it checked out, where it's checked out, etc. So you can set the detail view for the local folder that you're looking at, but if you wanted to do this more or less globally, in other words, for the entire local vault view, by setting the detail view, I'm going to show you how to do that. Inside of the Windows Explorer, there's a drop-down, as you can see here in the picture on the left, that you can set the view to details. As soon as you set the view to details, over on the left-hand corner, there's an Organize button. Choose that, choose Folder and Search options in the second or middle picture here, and over on the right-hand side, the Folder Options interface will open. You'll click the View tab here and then Apply to Folders. So let's go ahead and show you how that looks. Coming into our local vault view, this is set to something other than details, for example, large icons. You don't get the full benefit of being able to see the information about the columns here. So by clicking on this little drop-down arrow, we can change this to details. Once you set it to details, over in the left-hand side, drop down Organize, change Folder and Search options, click on the View tab, and Apply to Folders, and say Yes. So now, navigating throughout the vault, you're able to see the different columns. Let's go back. Tip number four, Show custom properties column and dialog boxes. So when you're checking something in, checking something out, doing a transition inside of Enterprise PDM, the default columns, file name, result, get latest, local, etc., those are going to show no matter what, but perhaps you want to show some additional information. So you can show custom properties in a column inside of those various dialog boxes. As you can see here, simply right-clicking on the column header there inside of one of the dialog boxes gives you a menu of the available default columns, file name, result, checkout, get, local version, etc. But there's also an option for more. If you choose more, then you get to select the columns to display in the file listing for these dialog boxes. And that information comes directly from the file data card, which also comes from the custom properties in your SolidWorks files potentially. So let's go ahead and take a look. Inside of our Enterprise PDM Vault, perhaps I have a file that I'm going to check out. Oops, I need something with a little bit more information. Let's go in here. Okay, so here is my checkout dialog box. I've got a few different columns here, but perhaps I want to see description. So right-clicking anywhere inside of this column header up here will give me the option to click on more. And here I can drill down and perhaps find description in my list of information for the custom properties that are coming from the data card as well as custom properties. And now it's going to show me the description for all of these different files. Okay. It's thinking about something. There we go. Let's go ahead and go back. So that's how you can show custom property columns inside of your dialog boxes for example, check-in, check-out. Tip number 5, resizing the columns in the detail view by using the control key and the plus sign key. That's CTRL and the plus sign. Holding down control and clicking the plus sign on the number pad will resize the column in the detail view. So the before and after here, all of the columns are kind of squished up. We can't really read what's going on for the information by clicking control and the plus sign on the number pad gives us the resizing of the columns. And this is Windows functionality, so you may or may not be familiar with this. Let's go ahead and jump into Quick Start, and as you saw before, this has been bugging me this whole time, but I've been waiting to show you that the Control Plus will resize the information. If I take a file and check it out, see this checked out by field is now showing me information. Clicking Control Plus now brings it, so it expands it out. If I go back to Quick Start, these columns are way too large. Using my Control Plus sign shrinks it again. So very dynamic functionality here to show you how to resize the columns by simply clicking a couple of keys on your keyboard. Hopefully it'll save you some time. So before and after there for the control plus the plus sign or the addition sign to resize columns in detail view. Tip number 6, turn on BITMAP preview for faster navigation. So this should be something that is discussed during the training, but if not, then hopefully this will be pretty helpful. When you're navigating through the vault and you're clicking on all your files, if you have the eDrawings preview set inside of our options, then it'll take a little bit longer for the files to load. If you switch that to be a bitmap preview, it'll allow you to navigate throughout the vault much quicker. So let's go ahead and take a look. I've got these files, I've got the preview tab selected, and as I'm clicking these files, you can see how it takes a few seconds for our eDrawings previewer to show us a preview of the different parts and assemblies and drawings. Doesn't take too long, but underneath display options, we can show bitmap for SolidWorks files. As soon as that's selected, if we go through, it takes a whole lot less time for our SolidWorks files to load with a bitmap preview. Also, with the bitmap preview, a single click inside of the preview pane still loads eDrawings, so you always have access to eDrawings. It's just navigating through the vault is a bit quicker now using the bitmap. And also that is available for DWG files, so SolidWorks and DWG files. Tip number 7, let's take a look. Enable full user interface for eDrawings preview, or enable full UI for eDrawings preview. Same exact location under display options. We can show the full user interface for the eDrawings program inside of the SolidWorks preview. So it gives you the ability to measure, to change the different views, a couple of other different items there. It really doesn't take too much space inside of the previewer, so let's go ahead and change our display options, and here it is, show full UI in SolidWorks preview. Let's get rid of temporarily the show bitmap and take a look here. Once eDrawings loads for our control box, we now have this nice little toolbar. We have the ability to measure here. We have the ability to look at different views, bottom, top, etc. So it's pretty nice to have this little user interface toolbar for eDrawings showing up inside of the preview, and it's very easy to toggle that on and off. Back on, back off. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at our, there we go, PowerPoint. Tip number 8. Using the Preview tab to view contents of zip files. So I'm not sure how many of you currently have zip files inside of your local vault view, but one of the really cool aspects of the Preview tab is that you can actually view the contents that reside within the zip file. So let's go ahead and take a look here inside of our local vault view. I'm going to open up the vault again. And inside of my project documentation folder, I should have a zip folder. I'm going to use my Control+ to expand that out. So I've got a compressed zip folder, and I have a few different documents in here. I've got a PDF, I've got a PNG. Let's go ahead and expand this out, and a few more PDFs, an Excel document, a Word document. So I have the information in here for what types of files exist inside of the zip folder, which is pretty nice. Let's go back. Speaking of zip files and the Preview tab, not only can you see them, but you can also extract the files directly from the Preview tab. So you can select one or multi-select a couple of different files, and you have the ability to right mouse button or right click and choose to extract the selected files, all files, or this file. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that'll work. So let's say we take this PDF, we right-click and we can extract this file, and then we tell it where to go. So we can go under Users, Username and Desktop if you wanted to, or you could even put it into the Vault. And there it is. Now it's not going to be added immediately to the vault, but it will show up inside of that folder. So then if you wanted to, you could simply right click and choose the option to add to the file vault. There we go. Tip number 10. Using Update References tool to manage broken references. So inside of Enterprise PDM, you may not have realized that you have a really powerful tool that updates references. So if you've ever dragged and dropped an assembly in and you've got a couple of different parts that are missing, they exist inside of the vault, but the references for some reason have been broken. You don't have to manually open them up inside of SolidWorks and reattach those references as long as they exist within Enterprise PDM. So using the Tools drop-down menu, you have access to Update References. So when you choose to use this Update Reference, if it has a file not found warning that you see here in the screenshot, you can update and find that reference using Enterprise PDM. If you need additional information on how to use the Update References tool, that can be found within the administration guide, which is located in the local computer. For any computer that has SolidWorks Enterprise PDM installed on it. C program files, SolidWorks Enterprise PDM, Lang, and GB for English, and we have our administration guide. So there's a whole bunch of information in this document, and if you do have any questions about the broken references tool, you can also look in here as well. That's kind of a second tip, so to speak. So again, Update References tool to manage broken references can be used within Enterprise PDM rather than manually updating them using SolidWorks, so it's going to save you some time there. Tip number 11, change login settings in the administration tool. So now we're going to kind of shift our focus away from some of the user interface information for the local vault view, and we're going to shift our focus to the administration tool. So for the end users of Enterprise PDM, the people who use this day in, day out, may not be familiar with some of these administration tool tips, but I think they're very useful for the admins of Enterprise PDM. So continuing on, if you have your login settings set to use Windows Active Directory, it becomes quite troublesome when you want to try and test certain functions inside of the vault logged in as an admin, because every time you try and go to the local vault view, it's going to automatically log you in with your Windows login. So how do you change that without going to the archive server? Well, you can go into the administration tool on the local computer, go under settings, double click on it, and we get this automatic login tab in the settings dialog box where we can switch from using the server default for a specific vault. So for example, on my Quick Start vault, I can uncheck the option to use server default, and then I will no longer be using automatic login settings that could have been set on the archive server. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Got my administration tool here, and under the local settings I've got a settings node. Double click on that, and if I drop this down, it's going to list all the different vaults. I only have one, which is Quick Start, and by choosing that vault I now have the option to uncheck use server default. What this does is whatever is being used on the server, whether it's Windows logins with the automatic login, it's no longer going to use that, and it's going to use just the Enterprise PDM login options for non-automatic login. So now I could log in as the admin. Okay. Coming back, tip number 12, import and utilize all users logged in search. So some of you may not realize that built into Enterprise PDM are some default cards and some default tasks. So one of those is the search for all logged in users, and it is available inside of C program files, SolidWorks Enterprise PDM default cards. Now you're going to notice that there are quite a few listed there for all search users with an underscore, CS, D, E, F, GB, etc. Well, the underscore characters are specific for language. So GB is going to be English, not E for English, it's E for Espanol. We're going to choose GB for English, and underneath the card editor you're going to import that all search users underscore GB card, and it'll have the ability to search to show all logged in users, which is pretty nice. Let me show you how we would go about finding that and importing it in. So inside of the C program files, SolidWorks Enterprise PDM default cards, scroll down a wee bit and you're going to be able to see the all users search card that is available for multiple different languages. Again, GB is the one that we want to use for English. Going into the administration tool, going under the cards and opening up the card editor, we can import File Import, the default card, all search users. Going down, GB for English again. And it's kind of a silly picture, but you can always change that if you would like to. But basically it's set up to be the users list with their full name, and we have some functionality here to show logged in users or show non-logged in users. And then simply saving that into the vault and applying permissions for who's able to use this search card gives you the functionality of searching for logged in users. And again, this is available on all client computers with Enterprise PDM. Underneath the C program files, SolidWorks Enterprise PDM default cards. This is the default install location. Going back to our PowerPoint presentation, tip number 13, set default values in search cards. So this can be used for a number of different reasons. You can apply default values for search cards to make it easier and faster for your users to just simply open up a search card and run it. They don't have to sit there and try and check a whole bunch of boxes because they're already pre-checked for them, which goes along with what they would normally do with that search. So the other thing is you can also restrict access for the search by applying a default value in a search field and then making that search field read only. So maybe you have a group of users that should only be looking for released files, so the search will be restricted for released state files. So a lot of different things that you can do with the default values in search cards. So I'm going to jump on into my card editor here so that you can see underneath the cards with the default values how to apply maybe a search folder path for a quick start here. Let's go into the administration tool, and once again I'm going to go back to the card editor. Ooh, cannot say that word, can I? And we're going to look for search cards. Maybe for the quick search. So going underneath card default values here at the top, I'm able to see the different variables that have been selected, such as a checkbox for checked in files, checked out files, and the values here for checkboxes, 1 is checked and 0 is unchecked. And then also we have the search folder path here, which we can then change to be something along the lines of quick start, or even drill down further for PDFs, etc. So you get to apply the default value that is going to show when someone opens up this this quick search card. And that's all it takes. Save it and you're done. Let's go back into our PowerPoint. Tip number 14. Copy settings when adding a new user. So you do have the ability to copy permissions and settings from an already existing user when you create new users. And it'll give you a drop-down list of the users that are already applied to this to that vault. So when you're adding new users, you can copy the settings of an existing user, which will make your life a little bit easier, potentially. Speaking of users, you can also add new users to a specific group automatically. So underneath the group permissions for the properties, for the general properties, you can check the check mark to add new users automatically to this group. Now I'm going to give a couple more little tips and tricks within this one tip and trick, which is I would suggest having a group that is called all users inside of your vault. The reason is because being able to choose the option to add new users automatically to this group will ensure that new users will be added to this all users group, and it also has the functionality to when you're about to do vault maintenance, or you're going to upgrade Enterprise PDM, or you are planning on doing some testing, you can refuse login for all users, and you know that it does encompass all of the different users. The other part of this all users group is that the group members should include everyone except the admin. The admin should not be a part of any group. the admin should be your power user, and the admin is the only user who should not be part of the all users group. So a couple of different reasons why to have the all users group. Again, one of them is so that you can refuse login for vault maintenance or upgrades for all users, and also so that you can maybe send a notification to all of the Enterprise PDM users. You can choose just simply the group all users. So a lot of different reasons why the all users group is a good one to first create, and then also use that checkbox for add new users automatically to this group. Tip number 16, refresh cache on templates folder. So this is a new feature for Enterprise PDM for the 2014 version of Enterprise PDM. We have cache options for users and groups. So I would like to point out that one of the folders that I would suggest having refresh cache during login turned on for is the templates folder. The templates folder would be for Enterprise PDM template files. For SolidWorks template files, you can store your SolidWorks sheet metal gauge tables, your weldment profiles, all sorts of different files can be stored inside of one central folder location called templates inside of Enterprise PDM. But it is highly recommended to refresh cache on that templates folder, whatever you may call it. Another tip along with this is not to refresh cache for all folders. When you choose the option to refresh cache during login, you are getting latest version on all the files that exist inside of that folder. Hence, it's a good idea to do it for maybe 1 or 2 folders, but not for the entire vault. Otherwise, it would take an extremely long amount of time for people to log in and get access to the vault. So, tip number 16, refresh cache on the templates folder so that your users will be able to run Enterprise PDM templates and use SolidWorks templates without any kind of problems. And they'll also have the latest versions no matter what. Tip number 17, use aliases and input formula for a smarter part numbering. So hopefully you've been introduced to aliases and input formulas. If you have not, let's do a little bit of a background here. It's actually really cool to create some more complex numbering systems, whether it's part number, drawing number, assembly number, project number, file name, whatever you want to use this for. It allows you to create a bit more complex numbering systems for the different files and also different potentially projects that you have. So the way it works is basically, let's jump into Enterprise PDM here, administration tool. We have a couple of different lists here, such as file type and, where's my other one? Vendor code. So what this is basically stating is that the displayed value is bolt, but the alias is BLT. So this is what the end user sees when they drop down, for example, a field on a data card, and this is what is actually being stored in the database or shown in our input formula in a moment. Same thing here for the vendor code. We've got McMastering Crafts and who knows what and what's up doc, but the alias here is MMC, WKW, and WUD. So let's go ahead and see how that works on the data card. So on my testing input number, I've got a file type using that alias set list for my card. Same thing for vendor. I've got vendor code listed here, which is using that alias set list for cards. Number here is simply just a serial number, which is a 4-digit serial number utilizing number component here. And then we also have our input formula. You're probably wondering where this input formula is. Well, if we drag this out and scooch this down, because of my aspect ratio right now, I have to pull that out, but it's all the way down at the bottom for the edit box properties. Here it is, input formula, and it basically is set up so that you can choose existing variables that might be on that data card, such as file type, vendor, and number, and bring them together with either dashes or underscores or different functions here to create a bit more of a complex numbering system. So once you build your input formula, we can see how this is going to create a much more complex part number. So here I've got a couple of different parts. Not really much information is being filled out just quite yet. I left them blank on purpose. Let's go ahead and check these files out, or at least one of them. And I'm going to choose housing, and I'm going to choose the vendor code What's Up Doc. So we can see how the new part number builds based off of the alias set housing HSG and the What's Up Doc WUD, and then our serialized number component 037. And this can be made read-only, of course, if you would like to as well. Screw, Southern something, mastering, crafts, etc. So as you can see, you can change this if need be. So pretty powerful, out-of-the-box, smarter numbering tools using alias sets and input formulas there. Okay. Tip number 18. We have copy and paste transitions and states. It's kind of like a no-duh, hopefully. You can copy and you can paste transitions and states, but the really cool thing is you can copy and paste transitions and states in your workflows to a new workflow. So you set up your state how you want it to be. Maybe you want to copy it and paste it and use it in another workflow. Well, you can do that. Really cool functionality here. Let's get out of our card editor and let's jump into our administration tool. And I'm going to drill down to my workflow that I've got called Quick Start Workflow. So I've got some different states and transitions that have quite a bit of permission set up, maybe a couple of actions, and maybe some notifications. And maybe I want to copy this information to a new workflow, but I don't want to take the time to have to go through and create a new state and then fill out the information for the permissions, etc. So instead what I have is an already existing workflow called copy paste, and I'm going to copy the pending approval and paste inside of this new workflow. I also have copy and paste for the transition. Now, anytime you paste a transition, the first thing it's going to say is select source state. So you have to select where it's coming from, and then you have to select the destination state or where it's going to. So now we can see that the permissions and the actions and the notifications are copied from one workflow to another, which is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and save that. So copy and paste transitions and states, if you didn't already know that you could do that, well, now you know you can. And then also you can copy and paste transitions and states from one workflow to a whole new workflow, which is pretty cool. Tip number 19, use conditions in workflow transitions. There's a lot of different reasons why you might want to use conditions in workflow transitions. For example, maybe you would like to make sure that parts and assemblies contain a check mark for FDA, but you don't care if drawings go through the same exact transition. So you can set it up to have conditions inside of your transitions that will prevent certain files going through that transition until certain conditions are met. This is pretty helpful also for legacy file import workflow. So if you're unfamiliar with the legacy files import workflow, we can also give you additional information for that. So give us a call or an email and we'll be able to help you out with that. But specifically for this example, I've got inside of my workflow pending approval going to release, and I've got two transitions here called release, or I'm sorry, called approve. So I have one approve transition specifically for parts and assemblies, and I have one approve specifically for drawings. So underneath my conditions, I can say here that the file path has to have SLD, DRW in it. No biggie. But over here, I can say that for my conditions, it has to be an assembly or a part, and FDA has to be checked on the data card. So it can't be approved, it can't be released for SolidWorks parts and assemblies until that checkbox is selected for FDA. So lots of different ways that you could use the transition conditions to either force a file to go through a certain route for different actions or different conversions, tasks, or to force someone to fill out something on the data card prior to moving into a released or approved state. So a lot of really cool things that you can do with conditions inside of the workflow transitions. Let's take a look at tip number 20, using automatic transitions to bump a revision or for a lot of other different reasons as well. Again, that goes back to the legacy files import workflow that is pretty helpful when you're migrating data in. But specifically for this example, we're going to show how to use automatic transitions simply to bump a revision. Bumping a revision would be maybe there was just some sort of mistake or something that had been modified, but it doesn't require a full approval loop, and you just simply want to bump the revision. So you can create a single right-click change state that will bump the revision and then bring it immediately back to the release state. So let's take a look inside of the administration tool here. I've got my release state. If I right-click on a file and tell it to bump revision, what will happen is the file will go from released, go through this transition, come here, bump the revision up to the next letter or number, and then automatically transition back to the release state. So it's a single right-click, change state, boom, you bump the revision and it goes back to a release state. Pretty cool. But I would suggest, if you do that, to restrict the permissions so only the admin and maybe a manager could use this bump revision loop. So that was tip number 20. So just wanted to say thank you for attending 20 Tip Thursdays with SolidWorks Enterprise PDM, Catherine Brooks.
All right, thanks, Catherine. That was great. So now it's time to get all your questions answered. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in, and Catherine will answer them for you.
Sorry for the poor sound quality. It looks like we had at the very beginning. Hopefully the sound quality improved. Tried to speak up a little louder.
Yeah, you sounded great on my end, so. Also, so you all know, we do record these webinars, so if you would like to review them, you can go to our website, and there should be a link there at the top. So you can check out any of the webinars that we've had. All right, looks like Brian has a question. He was wondering, where is the setting to only check out the active items and not the parts associated with them?
The setting to check out active items and not the parts associated with them. Are you talking about when you right-click to check out, it has a checkbox in all of the referenced files versus not having a checkbox in the referenced files? Okay, I just wanted to clarify before I answered that. So let me go ahead and move that thing out of my way. And this should be underneath, for example, a user setting. I gotta remember where that one is. I know exactly which setting you're talking about. I just have to remember where it is. There we go. Try to check out all reference files when the reference file is checked out. I believe that is the permission. But I'll double check that and test it, and I'll give you an email if that's okay, Brian. I believe we have your contact information. Thanks.
All right, are there any other questions out there for Catherine? We'll wait here just another moment and see if there's any other questions that come through. All right, well, it doesn't look, oh, here we go, we have one. Brian was also wondering, it says, our Volt Viewer terminals, how do you get rid of the warnings the file is out of date or sync?
The Vault Viewer terminals is in clients that are installed with a viewer license, and inside of the previewer you get a warning that the file is out of date or sync, or are you talking about the warning that shows up inside of like the Contains tab? Because there is a show not rebuilt warnings on drawings and assemblies in need of rebuilding, and you can uncheck this. On the Vault Viewer terminals. Well, let me give you a call so that we can discuss that potentially offline. So as soon as we're done here, I'll give you a call and we'll discuss that in further details.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, doesn't look like there's any other questions. I just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and have a great day.